Hello and welcome once again to an exciting episode of Releasing Your Inner Dragon with Drake and Marie. I am one of your hosts, Maxwell Alexander Drake. I'm an award-winning novelist, former lead fiction writer to Sony's Epic West Next. I am invited to teach writing all over the world. As always, with me is my co-host, Marie.
Hi, my name is Marie Mullaney. I have a fantasy fantasy world building channel on YouTube, and I write epic fantasy.
And today we're going to do another Magic Falls plotting session. So a lot more than we did for the first book, but again, we kind of crammed everything in the first book, and we're doing really well on here. We still have at least another 6 to 8 weeks that we can plot before we really start putting pen to paper. And oh my goodness, is this book turning out to be the first one was okay, and I like the first one. We rushed it, and so it has a few nothing negative to it. It's just, that's the thing. I think it went from, it's a pretty good book to, if we had spent more time on it, it would just be a better book is all it would have been. Not that it was a bad book to begin with. It just would have been better. And that's what we're doing here is we're now taking this and just making it better. Before we get into it though, as always as well, please like, share, subscribe, help us defeat that horrible allegory monster. If we're bringing you content that you're enjoying listening to, and hopefully that's why you're here, then we know you have people out there that would also enjoy this. You really should, it's so little to pay us back for our time and effort just to tell somebody, hey, you should probably listen to this podcast. So please do that. Help us spread the word, and we'll be eternally grateful to you.
Yep.
Do you want to do any type of commercial?
Sure. So today's podcast is brought to you by the members of my YouTube channel. So if you do listen to my YouTube channel, and if you are interested in getting access to my content earlier, or in getting access to cool emojis, or in getting to get my signed books for the price of shipping, then head over to my YouTube channel and check out the membership perks. And you can become a channel member, and then instead of getting my series one every 2 weeks when I release them, like Home and Magic at Home and so on, which is my current series that is releasing, you could get the whole series at once, which is currently sitting there in the membership area. So, okay.
Highly recommend it.
Let's talk about Magicful.
So why don't you do your normal song and dance? Because obviously I'm an idiot, and when I'm like a 3-year-old, so if it's not in front of me, it doesn't exist. So I basically know nothing about this book. So why don't you enlighten me so that I know where we're at, and thereby the audience knows where we're at, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, so I actually have now gotten to the point where I've gotten out the beginnings of an outline written. So I'm going to share my screen so that we can actually look at the outline. Isn't that cool?
Progress.
All right, so Lyron and Burry are sitting at a fire outside of control of the city. They are returning to the city that is floating in the sky above them, which is where they live. They discuss Burry's sister's current condition, radiation sickness, and Ghost gives Burry instruction on how to use the device that they found at the end of book 1 to cure her sister's sickness. They enter back into the city's control. Lyron's father's people whisk them past the priests, and they reach the city, and they split up to go their separate ways. Burry heads to the hospital where she uses the device to stabilize her sister. However, her sister is very far gone, and she has to use a special setting which transfers some of the radiation to Burry, and she becomes adapted while her sister remains half adapted. Some priests hustle Burry away, telling her sister that she Burry died, and her sister has Teacup at this point. I just feel it's important that we keep track of the cat.
Yep.
We've
already established that the cat can somehow has some power to be able to track people down.
Yes. Lyron's actions have impressed his father, and he, the father, requests a full recap. On learning about the village of the adapted, father is very surprised and says he'll send people to investigate. Lyron insists on accompanying them, which his father agrees to. On the outside once more, Lyron explores the village. Here, I have a question. Are we going to put in that he has an encounter with Mota? So that's still, for me, that's not quite clear. But he basically, in this exploration process, he learns more about Helios and about Ghost, and the Ghost in this book is a different Ghost. It's a more Amenta type character.
All right, so let's, after you finish doing that, I think that's where we come back to and spend some time on his Moda.
Yes.
I've got some ideas for Moda.
Yeah. Buri is inducted. Inducted. The word is inducted. Also, I didn't spell Mota right. My keyboard has a thing.
Yes.
To make that key with. Buri is
technically mine does too, because I just type in Moda and then it automatically adds it for me.
No, I know, but mine has an actual key with that character on it.
Right. That's because you speak that weird cryptic cult language.
Yeah. Because I speak a language that uses more vowels than English has. So
yes. Well, I mean, there's English, and then everything else is weird cult language. You knew that, right?
Yep, I understand.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And actually, it's even deeper. There's American English, because even the British speak some weird cult language. I mean, it's just weird. And don't even start on the Australians. I mean, that's not even. I don't know what the hell they're doing down there.
So Buri is inducted into the priesthood. She learns about crazy Helios. She buys into the priesthood's mission to keep the city aloft. She sees her sister grieving, but her sister is settling in with Tyrone. She is getting the bakery up and running. Even Teacup settles down. So Buri says goodbye to her old life and embraces her life of keeping crazy Helios docile and providing power to the city.
So make a note here.
Mm-hmm.
If we need it. Teacup can't sense Buri because she's adapted right now. So later, when they get reacquainted, that might be if we need it.
Yeah.
I was just, when you were reading that, I was like, oh, that's actually a really good organic way to not let Teacup get involved with Buri and out her. Because she's not really a different person. She's in a different body. She's different, so Teacup just doesn't recognize her. However, he was tracking her, either smell or magic or whatever. He just doesn't. She's a stranger. And that actually may be really fun to play with the first time they get together.
Yeah.
Where she's all like, yay. And he's all like, I don't know who you are, lady. Like,
yeah.
That might be really fun to play with.
Okay, so she's doing that, and that's like we can see the plot starting there with crazy Helios. Okay, then Lyron enters the city engineering corps. He learns that the situation in the city is very dire, and the knowledge he and Buri brought back from the Nari Fall will help if they can interpret it fast enough. He starts working with Ghost's help on getting the city stabilized. And he, that is Lyron, wonders why he hasn't heard from Buri yet, because I feel it's important to kind of keep that thread between the characters running.
I mean, they had an adventure together. Also, just so that everybody knows, just because you were vague in this, the city's gravitational system was failing through book 1. You don't have to add this. We know this. I was just giving it to the audience. And so that's still, we can't just leave that thread open. If it was a problem and kind of driving things in book 1, it can't just be magically fixed now. Like, we're going to have to deal with that situation. Otherwise, it becomes a Chekhov's gun.
I agree. Then back to Buri. Buri learns that some adapted have the ability to manipulate supersymmetry directly. I've got a question here on how, and I know we said that maybe she can learn it from Mota, but I'm not sure that world building quite works for me.
No. Mota can't be a part of that. Because I think we're leaning toward the fact that Moda is still against the church as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
But we can have, like, if we go with this supersymmetry as possible, like the priests can show her how to do the, showing her
right.
like there's a very small
Exactly.
amount, la 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 la. Yeah,
Right. Exactly. I mean, we're going to have to come up with some secondary characters in the priesthood.
absolutely. Priest training.
Yeah. And that's a part of it because she's like, I can't mess with Jurin anymore. And he's like, trust me, you won't need to. Like,
Can I
you are
tell you
now
the
more.
funniest thing? just on a side note, you know how I will build in my stories, right? I give you nothing, right? And always, some, or not always, but twice now, with both Sangwheel and with Magic Fall, I started out with a magic character already capable. Okay, so they don't go through training, they don't have lessons, they just use their magic. And if you, the reader, can't keep up, well, read better. Like, you know. Um, and and then in the second book, for some reason, I
They lose.
introduce teaching magic. Like, I made you suffer so that you can reach this point where I can give you instructions.
Yeah. And mine is kind of that way as well. Although in Genesis, magic
You
literally is
Yeah,
just
you have a
carpentry.
school scene way early.
Well, no, but I know, but I'm
Yeah,
saying it's just carpentry magic. It can't
yeah.
really do anything. It literally is just this blue collar factory worker magic.
Mm.
It doesn't do anything amazing. And then in book two, they get promoted and the
Mm.
powers coming back, and now they're actually casting fireballs and
Mm.
lightning bolts and some things that they weren't able to do in book one. So now they have to learn again. But yes, I do have a school scene in the first book
Yeah.
to teach the magic.
Oh, I'm such a miser when it comes to like showing things like that to the reader. I'm like, just pick it up.
Yeah.
um. Anyway, so she learns. She gets this ability to manipulate supersymmetry directly, and she starts going through this training process, which is obviously somewhat slow, because she now has to learn a whole new system, which is different from how she did with Jiren. And it can't be done in the city to a large extent because of the lack of supersymmetry radiation. But on the planet, a skilled supersymmetry mage, I'll come up with some kind of cool name for them. I'm not going to call them supersymmetry mages. That's not going to work for me. I can do a lot. Okay, so
Also
because of
in the notes there, just put a question mark of um Burry and Laron see each other on planet.
uh maybe.
Yeah, that's why I say just put a question on there. I'm not saying that it's there, but since they both have to go back, since they're basically both at the planet, it might be kind of cool because we
Yeah.
do set up, you know, at before that we've got Laron going, wow, I don't understand why I haven't seen Burry yet, and this might be a really cool scene where he then goes, oh crap, you're blue,
Mm.
but don't let them interact. Like
Mm.
it would be from a distance, um, because that could add a lot of tension on Laron's side, where he's like, I think she's betrayed us. That might be, and again, this is just a question, so it's not like we're using this.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And then that's why I just added another question there of, does he recognize her? Because that obviously that does also. Yeah.
Right.
All right. So because of Buri's previous interaction with Ghost and his conversation about her blood powering Jiren, because they had that whole conversation when her Jiren went kind of crazy, she starts thinking about magic differently and starts exploring it more as a science, wondering how Lyran would think of the stuff and wishing she could talk these concepts over with him and Ghost.
You know what?
Yeah.
That is a great tension between her and the priests.
Yeah.
The fact that the priests it's going to be all mystic.
Mm.
The priests need to see this as mystic magic. There's no science to this at all. It's absolute magic. And she's like, what is it?
Yeah.
Because
I thought that about Jiren, and then I had this conversation, and it's
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I think the priest should literally, I love what you wrote there, builder's blessing. It's like, no, this is a gift from our God. Like
Yes.
he is actually bestowing only on the most deserving does he bestow. And she's like, yeah, no, it's actually just a thing that,
Yeah.
and that's going to cause some serious tension for her story.
Yeah. Especially because like she might need to sort of keep it, like the first time she says, but it's probably just some sort of way in
Yeah,
which she'll be like, no, no,
right,
you know,
right.
and
When they freak out over that, she's
yeah,
gonna be like, oh, maybe I should keep that to myself.
yeah, okay, and that's where I am currently in the outline because last plotting session we changed everything about Burry's Act One, so I was like, okay, let me put it down to the point where I know where the changes affect. Because now, okay, so we've got the setup. Lyron's in the engineering corps, the city's under serious threat. Burry's in the priesthood, keeping crazy Helios calm, learning supersymmetry magic.
So let's, like I said, I want to talk about Moda for a second.
Yes.
So let's actually step into his role as a hero.
Okay.
And let's actually build his story as if we were going to write it.
Okay.
So because we didn't, and again, there are some negatives to the fact that we rushed this, and one of those is the ambiguity that we gave to the people in that village and his connection to Helios and all this stuff. It all works great for what we're doing, because leaving it ambiguous means that now we can fill it in and it works in several different directions, depending on which we would take it. So he's the leader of a resistance. They believe in what Helios is telling them, that the only way to save humanity is to get them out of that stupid city, to get that city down on the ground and don't let them be and I'm just saying all this stuff. Correct me if you feel anything that I'm saying is incorrect. They believe that the end of humanity is going to happen in that city. That if humans don't evolve, we're not going to survive as a species. It's not sustainable. You guys are stupid for doing this. And so they believe that they're the good guys. They're the ones trying to actually save humanity. And Helios convinced them of this, obviously, because, again, that's what Helios believes.
Yeah.
And so, and also he has that weird Borg power over them as well. So that also helps. So they believe they're on the good side. They just got their asses handed to them. Their Helios connection is gone, so their god has gone silent, and that's going to be a huge impact on that. There could be him blaming.
I was just about to say, like, how many of his people blame Mota?
That's an interesting concept. Maybe
how many
Mota
of them blame Mota, and does he retain his leadership?
Does he even retain his membership in the society? It might
what
be
if they exile him?
Exactly. And now when he and Laron meet, there's going to be two things there. One, they're actually on even playing fields. Neither one of them have this. But two, Laron's not going to believe him because Laron already met him in that state once, where he's like, you've already done this song and dance where you're just, not a part of any of this stuff when actually you're the leader. Like, you're just doing it again. He's like, no, I really was exiled. That actually is really cool, because then now Moda is going to have to, for self-preservation reasons, if we put him in a situation where he's not going to survive this, and Laron kind of comes at the right moment, that may be an interesting way to connect the two of them more in a.
It would be fascinating to set them up in a situation where they almost save each other. Right? And it forges a bond between them. And the reason why it would be fascinating is because it would then give Mota and his father access to
Laron and his father.
Laron and his father access to not the religion, but the religion's counter, or knowledge that the religion has.
Right. Well, some decide if Mota knows about crazy Helios, and I don't think he should.
No, not crazy Helios. No. But things like that adapted have supersymmetry radiation manipulation magic.
Right.
Stuff like that.
All right. So that leads me down the path of, we never really discussed this, but this might fill Laron's Act 2 for a little while. So they go down there and they're just going on a reconnaissance mission for his people to see it, but it's a dangerous planet and everything goes wrong and everyone dies but Laron, and Mota's been exiled, and so he's in a bad way, and that's when they run into each other.
I'm gonna stop you. I don't want Laron's whole team dead again, because we're double dipping. That was exactly what we did in book 1. The whole, like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like doing it again would just be like, yeah, okay, no.
But we can accomplish the same thing if something happens and he just gets separated by them. You know, he falls through something and, rolls down something or whatever, and he's just completely removed from them.
Yeah,
is basically
he's removed. Or they're knocked unconscious, or like something. Whatever. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Where they think he's dead.
Yeah.
Maybe that would be.
Yeah.
Maybe that's cool, where they think he's dead.
Yeah.
There's some weird monster that, like a spider sort of thing, or a venom sort of thing, that he is conscious, so he can hear and still be the narrator of the story, but he can't move or speak or anything. And so he hears the conversation of them going, are you gonna be the one that tells his father? I don't want to be the one that tells his father that he's dead. Like, well, I mean, we got to do something. It's a dangerous planet. Let's just go back. And then maybe if this is kind of like a spider's type lair, and the monster then drags Laron back and he throws him in the pit of his food, he lands next to Mota in the exact same situation. And then they have to work together to figure out how to get out of this. And Mota would have some knowledge, but he's missing some pieces of actually being able to do it. And Laron actually has, exactly. That's exactly what I was doing. But because of Laron's engineering abilities that Mota doesn't have, they each have half of what they need to escape. But I mean, that gives you your they have to save each other in a very organic way.
Yeah.
And then that sets up everything. And of course, I still want to play with the fact that Laron doesn't trust him.
No, I mean, would you trust the dude? He turned people into zombies. Like
right.
He did some pretty rough stuff.
Right.
And he'll justify it. He'll even justify it to Laron. He'll be like, yeah, but your mercs kill us. Like, I didn't kill anybody.
Well, I was gonna go even a step further, where when Laron finally throws in his face, where he's like, look, I don't trust you. You're just doing the same thing again.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I got captured by Shelob and wrapped up as her food just in case you might also get caught by her and thrown next to me on her dinner table so that I could then trick you into being my friend. Like, yeah, that was my plan. You nailed it. You caught me red-handed. Like, I can literally see that. And
that is a great conversation.
And Laron going, all right, okay, I see that point. Maybe you have a point there.
Yeah.
But yeah, because then, I mean, that is a way.
But now Mota is still dedicated to Helios, right? I mean, he hasn't lost his belief in Helios or his belief in the correctness of Helios.
Right.
These people no longer trust him, and they've exiled him.
And so that's where I was going with his story. So if he's the hero of his story and he's exiled, yeah, he begrudgingly befriends Laron out of mutual respect for saving each other and all of that. But his quest is to reconnect Helios to the planet.
Yeah.
Now he doesn't really understand, maybe that it's still a worshiping kind of thing, and he's just trying to build some type of holy conduit or whatever. However, the reason why I think that's important and why it's such a good connection is because we know we want to eventually have Helios aid them. And this means that now Laron has a longer, because if we separate Laron from the city,
How
and
does this grab you? What if Mota says, okay, well, Laron sees Mota manipulating supersymmetry. And then he's like, okay, what if your supersymmetry can fix what if we can fix the antigrav with this stuff? Right? But to do that, they've got to get some extra things. They've got to get some information. And of course, Mota is amping to, get Helios back into connection. He's like, we should just bring the city down to the ground. And Laron's like, well, that isn't going to happen.
Right. And I think that should be at least stated. But
yeah.
What if, because I don't think we want to be in Mota's head. I don't think he ever needs to be a narrating character. But what if Laron is convinced that he convinces Mota to join his cause? And he's like, look, you can't go back there. They've exiled you. What else do you got? And he's like, well, I guess you're right. But in actuality, he's like, I'm going to backstab you. And that's how I'm going to get in the good graces again. So he now is this ticking time bomb of a terrorist. Now, I do believe he has to actually then come over to Laron's side. With the
yes,
when they find out about evil Helios and all of that.
Yes, but later.
Crazy.
Right?
Right.
So, I mean, the thing is, for the reader, it's got to be ambiguous. Right? So the reader's got to be like, is he on Laron's side? Has he actually, like,
right. That's why I said we're never in Mota's head. So it has to be convincing enough that Laron is like,
yes.
I'm
and that's why it's better that we're not in Laron's head, because we never know. In Mota's head, because we never know.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
So that now gives Laron a connection to Helios, which we were missing.
Yes.
It brings Mota back into the story, which we were missing.
Quest to... I'm not going to call it Susie Magic. I'm just shortening it.
Right. So that led me down an interesting path. Before Laron gets separated from the group. So right now, the way it sits is Laron's father sends Laron and the team down to investigate the city to find out more about the religion. And that's okay. However, revisiting that, what if they have a meeting with the techs that go through the database of the manuals? And it's like, yes, this is everything we need to fix it. However, we don't have this thing. And Mota's like, but that city that I was in has that thing. And so that's the reason why they go down there. However, their mission fails. Either the thing is destroyed or it isn't actually there, or like they get there and maybe they exiled Mota, but they also left this place for some reason.
Yeah.
We said there were other cities, so maybe they just abandoned this one because of the destruction to it, and they moved in with some of the other cities that are down, some of the other little villages that are down there.
Maybe that's it exactly. They haven't even just exiled Mota. They've declared this entire village, this community, tainted, and they've all spread to the winds and gone to join other communities.
Right. And so Laron gets to the village. They're, wow, this is going to be easier than we thought because there's no resistance whatsoever because everybody's gone. And he's like, yeah, it's in this warehouse, because there was that one warehouse he was in. And he's like, yeah, I think I saw something in there like that. They get in there and it's either gone or it's destroyed or whatever. And they're like, crap, we can't fix, even though we now have the knowledge to fix the anti-gravs without these components, we can't do it. And so that gives Laron a really good reason of, even if he doesn't 100% trust Moda, if he figures out that Moda and Sussy Magic, which I think is hilarious because it also is the shorten of suspicious, sus. That's very sus. So Sussy Magic, if Laron figures it out, then he's weighing the greater of the two evils of, well, I got to partner with him. And even if he is lying to me, he's still the only hope of saving my city.
Yeah.
At this point. So that gives a very believable and compelling reason why Laron goes ahead anyway, even if he does think that Moda is trying to screw it.
Yes. Yeah. I like
and
that.
So their plan fails. That all finishes. The mercs get to the city. They go through the little magic gate, and everything's gone and everything's destroyed and everything is whatever. And he's like, well, crap. And they're like, well, let's go home. And so they start going home, and it's on the trip home that Laron gets attacked by Shelob, and taken away. And the mercs, they fight Shelob as well, but there's nothing they can do to her or whatever. And so Laron gets to hear them when he's like taken under her lair or whatever, going, what are we going to do? I mean, he's like, well, no one survives that. He's dead.
Yeah.
He's like, well, I'm not going to be the one that tells his dad. That's all you, Captain. He's like, yeah. And then they leave because they truly believe he's dead. And then now that lets us have Laron have this little mini adventure on the planet, completely detached from everything. And I actually like this better than, because it was a little ambiguous on, we had the idea of he'll work up through the ranks of the political side, but I didn't really see exactly and he still will when he gets back.
Yeah.
But now it's just, it doesn't have to be the whole story now.
Yeah.
Because we had talked about maybe making it all political.
Yeah. Okay.
And so a lot of this is going to be Laron just surviving.
Yeah. So he hooks up with Moda and he gets to see what supersymmetry magic is like. And it kind of does that thing. And they go on this fetch quest to find this thing.
You may be the first person in history to verb Shelob's name. For those that can't see the screen, she wrote, on the trip home, Laron gets Shelobbed. So that's awesome.
And then
I'm digging that. Because now that lets us know exactly what Moda's motivation is, why he does what he does, and will help us shape his decisions as he's going through, because we know what he's trying to accomplish.
Yeah. Okay, so they then get back to the city, all right, where Buri has been going through this learning process. She's been learning all about supersymmetry radiation, and manipulating it, and the priests are all like mystical, and she's starting to think that, well, is it though? And of course, from the reader's perspective, they can see Mota using it, even if he's also like, it's mystical, it's a gift from my god, it's how I know Helios hasn't abandoned me.
Yes, I was about to say the exact same. I'm glad you went there, because I was saying, oh, that's how he knows that yes. Even though they rejected him, he's like, no, he didn't reject me. Like, he still loves me because he's given me his power. I'm still one of his chosen. And they're like, we don't care. You failed us. Screw you. Get out.
Yeah. So they're all like magic. And Laron, of course, doesn't have any reason to suspect, otherwise, right? He doesn't know about the priesthood. He doesn't like none of that stuff.
Right.
And so,
although technically we do have a way that inside of his head, Ghost goes, yeah, that isn't magic. This works like this. Ghost is going to know how to do it.
But the interesting thing is that Ghost, can have the like the reaction of, I don't know exactly how he's doing it, but it has to have a reasonable explanation.
Other than just frou-frou magic.
Yeah. We can even quote Arthur C. Clarke's law of sufficiently advanced technology.
Yeah. Well, they did come from Earth, so he can literally go.
Exactly. You can literally quote it.
Just say, there was an ancient author named Clarke who once said,
sufficiently advanced advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. We don't know how he does it, but there is a reasonable explanation.
So that wants me to take a side tour, just for the folks at home.
Yeah.
So why can we do that and quote that directly without it being considered plagiary or anything like that? Because that has reached public consciousness. Anything that becomes a part of culture, that's just a part of things, is kind of, that's why you can use McDonald's, you can use Kleenex, you can use whatever. Can the Arthur C. Clarke Foundation still come after us? Absolutely, they could, but they'd have to prove that us using that line in our book actually cost them money. They actually lost funds because we used it, and there's no way they're gonna, because we're not gonna actually do any damage to their foundation. So just as a side note, when it comes to parody law and free use law, now I don't give legal advice, so if you are going to do something like this, you need to go seek out your own actual lawyer to make sure that some weird fantasy author who said something on a weird podcast isn't just making it up and lying to you.
You do, but this is very much one of those things, like, it's very common usage. Everybody knows about it, and it makes sense that they could quote it. Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is we're actually going to credit the actual author too, because that's the other
thing. We're attributing it to the right thing. Like, it's not like we're claiming one of our authors made it up or whatever. Like, we're attributing it to the guy who said it.
Literally, just because they do come from Earth.
Yep.
And presumably in the past, the past of these people, Arthur C. Clarke was an author in this world.
Yep. Okay. So they're then, okay, so Lyron and Mota return to the city. Mota does his whole, like, disguise thing of where he turns red, and so on. And they're going to go fix the antigrav. Buri has grown quite attached to Crazy Helios. She's, like, helping him and being nice to him and keeping him steady and learning about supersymmetry magic. I think our mid-act 2 climax might involve is our mid-act 2 climax going to be Buri and Lyron meeting up, or is it going to be Mota and Lyron fixing the antigrav and it having an effect on Crazy Helios?
You know what? That may have solved a problem that we were having last session, where neither one of us want one of the characters to actually directly, I mean, it still kind of is something Laron did, but if Laron comes back,
but there are no other options, right?
Right. Yeah. But if Laron brings Mota back, takes him to the area, and Mota actually uses his supersymmetry to fix it, it could be the very first time that supersymmetry magic is used in the city, because maybe the priests absolutely forbid it from being used in the city, and because that happens, Mota using supersymmetry somehow tips Crazy Helios off,
or at least supersymmetry used in any big effect, right? Like, it's being and it's being used close to where Crazy Helios is, because it's down in the engineering core levels in the antigrav and all the rest of that, and that trips Crazy Helios up. And why I also like that is I like it because our boy Mota is the one who's actually doing it. Yes, I know that's semantics, because, Lyron takes him there and all the rest of that. All of that's true. But at the same time, like, Lyron, like, it's a thing that has to be done. This is one way to do it. And Lyron kind of maybe trusts Mota.
Well, so here's another thing that you may or may not like, depending on how you take it. This is also an opportunity for Mota to not fix the anti-grav, for Mota to actually spring his trap and trying to, and whatever he does.
Yeah.
And yes, technically you go, well, if Laron hadn't trusted him and Laron hadn't brought him in here, then he wouldn't have done this. But, you know, as you've already stated, Laron doesn't have a lot of, I mean, they already were in a desperate situation. They go down to get this thing. It's not there.
Yeah.
Now he's like, now the city's going to fall inevitably anyway.
Lyron doesn't have a lot of options. And Lyron also, I mean, he's a 17-year-old boy who is trusting a dude. Now, maybe he's stupid to trust the dude. Maybe it's dumb to trust him. But he has had good luck trusting things in the past. For example, he trusted a thing that climbed into his arm, and it worked out really well for him. You know what I mean? Like, he has very little reason to be suspicious of people's motives.
We can go with that. I think that's weak. I don't like that as much. Let me challenge you with this. What if Laron internally does know that Moda's going to do something? And so he comes up with a plan between him and Ghost where they're like, okay, well, this is how we can control him.
Okay.
And so they're like, because maybe Ghost is like, he's trying to take down the city. If you take him into the engine room, which these people don't have access to because of security reasons, and Laron's going to bypass all that, he's going to take the city down. And Laron goes, I know, but he's not, because I have this thing to stop him.
Yeah.
And then, so Laron has a solid plan to hold Moda in check. He thinks when he gets down there, Moda tries to enact it. Laron enacts his countermeasure, and it's the action and the countermeasure together that trip up.
How about his countermeasure works? Okay. It actually does force the supersymmetry into the anti-grav, and it does make it fix it. Right? So it actually does work. But because the supersymmetry interacts with the technology, it sets off an alarm that they don't know about.
That's literally where I was going. That's why I said it's the combination of both that trips up and warns Crazy Helios. So technically, again, we're getting back into that zone that you wanted to try and avoid, which is the character's kind of doing something that is but I mean, that's kind of, I don't know. I think stories are all kind of that way.
So this isn't egregious. I guess for me, what triggers me is when it's like the character the character befriends Crazy Helios and releases him. Like, no.
Right, exactly.
This is a necessary action that has an unintended consequence.
If we do it this way, then Laron technically wins. Laron goes, I'm going to befriend you, knowing that you're gonna backstab me. I'm going to do this thing that's going to force you to fix this anyway, even though I know you're going to try to break it. And then we're going to get there. You're going to try to break it. I'm going to use this thing and I'm going to force you to fix it. And I win because I fixed it. Like, I actually did accomplish my goal. Yeah. What I didn't know is that on the other side of this wall, there's a crazy god that notices that I did this. Yes. And now that crazy god starts acting different. And since we have Burry in that room, I'm really attracted to the idea, especially if we develop this relationship between Burry as one of the caretakers. I really like this idea that Crazy Helios is like, so let me ask you a question. Like, is this the thing? And she's like, well, why would you ask that? Like,
I know why she's attached to Crazy Helios. I know what her relationship is with him. All of this questioning she has about the supersymmetry radiation magic. Right? She knows that Crazy Helios she starts thinking that Crazy Helios is like Ghost. And she used to talk and Ghost was the one who triggered her on this Durin thing. So she starts talking to him about like science and magic and like how does supersymmetry work, and like not telling him exactly what she can do, but having kind of like almost mentor conversations.
Right. And then when Crazy Helios feels this weird thing, he then starts questioning her.
Yeah.
And that, because we said we wanted to tip her off that she starts realizing that something has changed. And that's when their relationship changes. Their relationship changes with the fact that before she was asking questions and he's happy to help her out because she's a devoted follower of his and trying to defeat the pureblood humans in this matrix world that they have set up.
Yeah.
Then he starts asking her questions about the fact that they're in a matrix world. Now, obviously, he doesn't say it straight out, but he starts questions would be, and then that's what raises her concern. And remember, we had said that she goes to the priest and voices the concerns, and they're like, "Stupid girl,
Yeah.
Shut up. He's contained. Everything is fine." And yeah,
And then, so the priest dismissed her concerns. Now she's really worried. Yeah. And now she reaches out. She's like, okay, I need to talk to somebody. Now, I can't reveal myself to Leiron, but at least he knows that adapted exists. So what if I go to him not as a priest, but as like I accidentally got adapted and I've been hiding out, so she hides that she's from the priest.
like it.
Okay.
I do like that.
Yeah, and she goes to him and she's like, listen, so I found this thing down in the city,
Well, no,
and
she can literally just say, she's like, look, when I went to heal my sister, because Laron, I think we should have Laron at some point bump into her sister.
Yeah.
And her sister says, yeah, unfortunately she died.
Yeah.
And so when she shows up, he's like, your sister thinks you're dead. And she's like, I know. I adapted like what Moda and all them did. And I couldn't get off the city, but I couldn't let anyone see me as a fully adapted because they would kill me.
Yeah.
And she's like, so I've just been hiding.
Yeah. But she then says to him, but I found a thing that I need to talk to Ghost about, please.
Right.
That
also can give some suspicion on Laron's part, because he can be like, I don't understand why you didn't come to me sooner.
Yeah.
Like, what have you been doing this whole time?
She could even say something like, well, maybe she saw him on the planet or something like, and she can be like, well, you weren't here. Or something.
I actually like it to be
blank on both sides. Yeah.
I like it to be a conflict that Laron knows that she's lying but doesn't know why.
Yeah.
Because if she says, well, I saw you leave, you weren't here, he'd be like, oh yeah, absolutely, great, 100% real, I was gone. But if he's like, why didn't you come to me sooner? And she's like, well, I just didn't think that I could bother you with. And he's like, what?
And of course, you want real conflict between them. Have Mota suddenly in that mix.
Right. Yeah, that was in my back pocket, was the fact that now we find out that, so in book one, Moto and Burry were on the same side, and now we have Mota and Laron on the same side, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I would write next to Mota, hey, or sup. Sup. Yep. So
does she get Ghost at this point?
Huh?
Like, what happens at this point? Okay, so we've now got a hell of a mix of characters all being all like, no, hold on, what is going on here? Like,
right. The only question I have is, does this happen before? Oh, it has to happen after. Never mind.
No, after. So Crazy Helios is suspicious. Crazy Helios is working on its escape plan.
Right. Yeah. Oh my goodness. You do realize what this means. So Mota's pissed.
Yes.
Mota had a great plan and Laron double-crossed him on his double cross.
Yes.
So when Burry comes to them and she has to, as a group, they
Yeah.
basically have to discuss the fact that there's this
Yeah.
crazy Helios down there. That gives Moda a plan B.
Yes.
And also, he's not going to believe that it's some different Helios. He's going to
Yes.
think it's just the same. And so now Moda's motivation is going to be to free this captive
Yes.
from them. And
Yes.
so, like, that is a great motivation for him to be a backstabber from within.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really like that, because now, um, so after the betrayal of the betrayal, Moda capitulates,
Yeah.
mostly because he just has no other options.
Yeah.
When Burry brings this in, he's now like, oh no, I've capitulated. I'm all on board with you guys. And he just keeps playing that role, but now his motivation has changed. Because after the double cross, then he's beaten. Laron has control
Yeah.
over him now. And so he's like, well, I guess I'm with you because I'm going to die anywhere else. And
Yeah.
then this opportunity falls in his lap where he can, like, oh, I can get back into my God's good graces by freeing a piece of my God that's been captive with you filthy humans.
Yes. Okay.
And so
So
that
now
gives
we
him a
have
great motivation.
Mota who's looking to free him. Well, at the moment, what we've got. So what we've got at this point is we have Lyron who's, well, what does Burry say? Because does she tell them she's in the priesthood at this point, or does she stick with like, no, see, I stumbled across this entity.
I think she starts there,
Yeah.
but so that if we're going to go down that path, it has to be a conflict point that eventually that does get resolved, as
Yes.
in she does get outed.
But where does
Or,
she get outed? Like, does she get
well,
outed in that chapter, or do we save it a bit?
well, so but here's my other question now,
Mm.
is to go back. Is there a reason for her to hide that she was in the priesthood? Like, it's kind of cool, the whole, I was lying and all this other stuff, but is there any bang for the buck? Or
So,
does she just come and say,
so she hides it because the nobody's supposed to know about the adapted in the priesthood.
I get that, but what benefit does it give her to hide that from Laron? I mean, she trusts him. I'm just saying it makes it a little easier if she just shows up and says, yeah, there's some things that you need to know that
Mm.
none of us knew about, you know. And she's like, I don't know. And I like, this could be actually the reveal. So
Yeah.
she's there with Laron, and she's like, I don't know if I'm trying to find out if they're connected to the ones on the planet. I almost feel like they don't even know about them for some reason or
Yeah.
whatever. She's like, but I think they are in connection. And then Moda steps out from the shadows and goes, no, we're not connected to them anyway. And she's like, what the crap are you doing here?
Yeah.
So, it could go that way, is what I'm saying. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, she could just show up as what she is.
So
Because
let's
what is
leave that open. Let's leave that open
right?
ended.
Right.
Eventually, she like will obviously like, so we're going to get to the point where they know about crazy Helios, and now she's like, look, he's been acting weird. Okay, so that's what they've got. They've got that he's acting weird. So, and she's like, I actually just want to take Ghost and understand what's going on.
Okay, now you lost me there. Why would she? I was thinking that she had questions that she wanted answer to versus taking Ghost.
Okay, we can go with questions that she has that she wants answers to as well.
So I think that if she has some things that she knows that she can only get answers from Ghost, that's a great reason for her coming out.
Mm.
And then that lets Moda find out about Crazy Helios and start his plan.
Okay.
They can work on this and then see, that's the other reason why I think that she should come to him with the priesthood, because he's like they've been hiding this, and she's like, whoa, they have to.
Yeah.
It's the only thing keeping the city aloft.
Yeah.
Like literally it's the only thing powering the city. You do not understand how this actually works. It's how the priests have stayed in power, equal power with the politicians.
Yeah.
Because of this balance between the two.
And Leiron can know that the priests control the power of the city.
Right.
Whereas the nobles control the engineering.
Right.
But he doesn't know how, obviously. And
right.
Here he finds out.
And now we find out it's from magic.
Yes.
Sort of. Their magic.
Their magic.
So, and I think that there's also an opportunity for them to be like, everything was fine until 2 days ago, and then something happened. He just changed. And Laron's like, 2 days ago. Yeah, it was like a light switch turned on. And she's like, you know what? It's when the tremors stopped. Seems like after the tremors stopped, he's different now. And that's when Larenz goes, oh crap. And maybe there's something there that can come up with a plan to fix it or whatever. Because here's the thing, where do we go from here? They can't, how do they fix this? What is there to fix, first of all, and how do they fix it? Because
so
they can't shut him off, because then they shut off the power to the city.
Yeah. So let's talk back in pure plotting mode. I think we now have a really good handle up to the problem point, up to the mid-act 2 climax and the problem point. Now we got to talk like what is the path of solution? We have 2 supersymmetry mages. We have Leiron himself, okay, who's an engineer, backed up by a very clever AI. We have
who's not whole.
Who's not whole. We have okay, so the priesthood have already said you're just a silly girl, don't be ridiculous. Leiron will be like, on the nobility side, we can try, but it's probably like, I think there must be a reason why that's not going to work either. Why they're not going to get the nobles behind them either. I think that we have an opportunity here to involve other people in the city. Maybe.
Well, in the back of my mind, I've always been thinking about how do we bring in the loan shark. I was just always like, we'll eventually find something, but just know that in the back of my mind, I was always like, the loan shark has to come back somehow, either for or against, however it works out. But you can't just have that character from book 1 that then doesn't have, a role in here. Technically, we need to do the same thing with her sister and her fiance now.
Yes. And with a speaker's chick and like all of that. We've got
that's what I'm about to say. And
there.
There's the daughter who is hot for Leiron. Because of his brain, and it intrigues her. So there's also a thing that needs to be brought in to make all this stuff work.
So I feel like all of those elements should be things that they then start weaving together. Like for example, right? Let's say they're like, okay, what if we start weaving Jiren together, and what if we get some Jiren workers that we know to start creating some kind of like fix for the situation, or we start putting on a show, like they start trying to figure out ways to fix the problem. And they pull on, like, they might either pull on the loan shark or run into him or something like that.
I was thinking that there would be an illegal component that they would need to make this. And he's like, well, I mean, I don't know anyone from the criminal underworld. And she's like, actually,
I
kind of do.
Yeah. Okay. So, Act 2. Okay. So we've got loan shark, illegal component. We have our sister and fiance for Jiren happiness, Jiren stuff happiness.
Hmm.
What are we going to want from the politics?
I think the politics have to be a dead end. I think you're right. We have to have something that stops them.
Yeah. But what I'm thinking is like girly pop, like the speakers.
Right.
She needs to be part of this in some way. Like
100%.
maybe they need access to something, and like they can't get in with Ghost. They can't get in with this. They can't. And finally, Laren's like, I know someone who might be able to get us in there.
And just make a note. They still don't need a name, but something funny bad has to happen to the kids who chase Laron.
Okay.
Where it's kind of the same scene, but in reverse.
Okay.
Where Laron gets the better of them. Because that'll show growth in his environment.
Yeah.
Actually, that scene made me think of something else
Mm.
that might be a possibility that could be very fascinating. There was the street priest.
Yeah. Yeah, the crazy dude.
The doomsdayist.
Mm.
What if he's actually a piece of this? He's a throw-off character in book one, but there's something as they're going through here. Another thing is like, there's that crazy street priest that's always screaming about this stuff. I wonder if he knows this thing, or and they're like, the crazy dude?
So
That guy's insane.
I'll put a question mark next to him and see if we can come up with anything, just as a memory. All right, so they start doing all this stuff, but eventually it's got to reach the point, and I think Mota needs to bring this up and say, you know who could deal with this?
Mm-hmm.
Is Helios. Like, I'm just saying. You know? And everybody else is like, no, we're gonna do this the other way. But Mota's still at the background there going, you know who could deal with this? Now, I do think that all of the preparations that they make should still contribute to the overcome. Like, absolutely, they must still invoke Helios, I think. Is that still going to be our overcome?
I think so, and I think Moda is the key to that.
Mm.
But what you got me thinking when you were going down that path, I don't know if I like Moda's backstab motivation again. I think we need to revisit the time when Laron gets the better of him, and somehow it actually does convert Moda.
Yeah.
It actually does make him realize that he's doing bad things. Some save the cat moment. It might be better to have Moda actually as a part of the team. Now, the audience won't know that. They will still be in the same situation that they were before, where they're like, is he really in the team?
What if the moment that changes Mota is when he finds out about crazy Helios? What if that realization of there are two? I am actually worshipping a machine. Like he has a real genuine atheism moment, you know, where he's like, what am I doing?
And you know, the cool thing is, that means that yes, Moda is the one that has to bring in Helios at the end, because Helios is the only thing that can do this overcome. But he's going to fight it. He's actually not going to want it. They're going to be like, you know, Laron or Ghost or Burry says, you know who could save the day now that everything has gone to crap?
Yeah.
Helios. And they turn to Moda, and he's like, no, it's a machine. It's literally no, because there's no greater person that hates religion than somebody who was raised in religion that then left religion.
I could write Mota.
Not
from
naming any
inside
names.
his head and portray that character.
Yeah, not naming any names or pointing any figures at all. But I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So that might be a really, I like that direction for Mota's motivation actually the best now.
Yeah.
That is a perfect solution that he actually does truly find out that he's a machine.
Yeah. I like that.
It has to happen sooner though. It has to happen before Burry shows up. So something in when they're dealing
okay. So as somebody who became an atheist, the process is a series of cracks. And we can show that, like, when he finds out about ghosts, that's the first crack. It's like, what do you mean you have one of these in your arm?
Right. You have the builder in your arm.
Yeah.
The thing
well,
that
he doesn't know he's a builder, but I mean, you know, he knows like there's a thing.
Well, no,
yeah.
he actually 100% would.
Oh,
like,
okay.
Like, he's like, you have the builder in your arm, like the thing that we're fighting, the thing that destroyed all of humanity. And Ghost is like, I don't think you know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And so then he's like, you know, because then the builder is like, I'm an artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
I was built.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's like, that's the first crack. Then, like, it's the second crack. Then, you know, and then finally he finds out about crazy Helios. And we can absolutely write a moment of like everything about him, all life just drains out of him in that moment as he's like, it's absolutely true. They're all machines. There is no higher purpose. I'm a sack of meat.
And I've been duped. And I've wasted all of this time and all of this energy.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I like that motivation the best of anything we've done for Mota. That's a great story arc for him too.
That's an amazing story arc.
Yeah.
Okay.
And a great theme to explore, you know, the losing of one's faith.
Yes. And finding meaning post losing your faith. You know, if your whole meaning was tied up in your faith, where do you find meaning?
Yeah, no, I'm digging that.
Yeah,
that's a win.
All right, that makes Mota a fascinating character. Just on a side note.
That is definitely a win.
Yeah. So Mota's going no Helios. Whenever it's brought up.
Well, at the end, he's going to have to do it.
Yeah. But at the start, he's like, that whenever somebody mentions it, somebody might mention Ghost, be like, you know, Helios could probably like take control of the city. Like he was going to do it. It could be a solution. And our boy Mota would be like, we are not doing that. That AI is crazy and wants to control the world.
Oh, you know what? That also could be another crack.
Yeah.
When Laron does his thing to stop his betrayal, so when he betrays the betrayal, it breaks some of the Borg hold.
Yeah.
Something physically changes in Mota's brain.
Yeah.
Because in my opinion, he doesn't know that he's not in full control of every one of his decisions.
Yeah.
That some of this is coming from an external source.
And of course, the other thing is like, you know, it's really hard to do that, to hit that break. You know what I mean? And we're compressing that timeline a lot. So having something happen there, like physically, makes it more realistic. You know, like it's a process of years to kind of split yourself away. At least it was for me. Like,
no, that is.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time. Don't ask me why, because I'm not going to go into reasons. But I've had extensive time training on deprogramming cultists, and also programming assets. So there's a lot to the human psyche that's dark and twisted and amazing. What, you know,
like it took me a long time to actually like fully go flat atheist.
One of the weirdest, most surreal experiences I ever experienced was the first 3 days of Marine Corps boot camp.
Yeah.
So I grew up in military school. I know military life. I'm all good with that. I know that the first 3 days of boot camp, before you get picked up by your DIs, it's called receiving. You do your paperwork, you get your shots, you get your uniforms. You're not a part of your platoon yet. It's all just receiving. But one of the things that they do is they start the brainwashing period during that time. Now, most of these kids don't know this going in. I mean, and I was a kid, I was 16. So, these 17, 18, 19-year-olds that are going in this with me don't realize it. But I already knew that it was going to happen. And yet about a day and a half into it, I literally became two people. I became one person that was watching myself, fascinated that I was totally falling for brainwashing that I knew was coming. And then I was the other person who was actually being brainwashed, and I could do nothing about it. And so it was a really interesting out-of-body experience because I knew what was going on. I also knew I couldn't do anything to stop it.
Yeah.
And that's weird for an intellectual to lose your mind. And I think that's the reason why I split into two. Because it was the only way my brain could deal with the fact that it lost control. So it took a back seat and watched me lose control of my own brain. So it's fascinating. So we're kind of going down that same path of deprogramming
and we're obviously, like, in a story, you do these things really fast. Like, I did a religious revolution in like 3 months, in Sangwheel, because you have to kind of compress timelines.
Right.
So you don't have the time to do this in the years it would take.
Exactly.
in normal senses.
Yep. No, I'm digging all this. This is every time we do get together, it's just stronger and stronger and stronger. Everything becomes more clear. It's what we, should have done with Magic Falls had we had the time. Not that Magic Falls is bad. I like Magic Falls. I like the way it turned out. But fans are going to be blown away when they get into the second book.
So what I like about Magic Fall is that it's a very much a fast-paced adventure story. Which I think it's a fun
adventure.
fast-paced adventure story with some hints of other elements in the world building. But I like it because it's easy to get into.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is the fact that we didn't have time to plan out all of this stuff has become our advantage. Because it's ambiguous, we can go, well, what we meant by that, and it doesn't break anything, because it's like Moda and magic. No, when we wrote that, he was not using magic in any way, shape, or form. However, there was nothing in there that said he wasn't using magic. Exactly. So even like the makeup scene, there was nothing that said he wasn't actually also using magic to make it look real.
Yeah.
It didn't explicitly. So now coming back and going, oh yeah, no. And when he tells, because I think the good way to do it is he'll start painting it on himself, and later on he'll go, wait a minute, it's spreading more than what you're doing. What the crap is going on? He's like, oh yeah, I'm using sussy magic. Don't you know? And so it's the first time when Laron could even learn that. So because of the ambiguity that we kind of were forced to do because of time limitations, that's now, not only is it a little bit of weakness because it's a little ambiguous in the first book, it now becomes a huge advantage for us now that we have this time to really contemplate this stuff.
And I do like it, because the thing is, like, epic fantasy can be hard to get into.
Yeah.
Especially in the first book, because you throw a lot's thrown on you. So when the first book is kind of more as adventure story, and there's gaps left. It's easier to, in the second book, write the bigger, voluminous,
And that's basically the way I did Genesis. All those stories are just little novellas. They don't even connect with each other. Every character is their own little island. They have their own little adventure. They're all happening simultaneously. And the one thing that I think I did really well was when one story is rising, all stories are rising, in the tension, even though they're dealing with nothing of the same. They're even on different continents, but they're all kind of taking the same roller coaster ride. So that makes it feel like it's all connected, even though they're on different continents and they're dealing with completely different things, and they don't even know about the other characters and everything else. So
what I did with Sangwheel was I pretty much made the first book all about Louis and his adventure. like, and introduced you to the world in my miserly fashion. But yeah, so I think this is a good spot to leave this discussion at. We've got a solid approach to Act 2. We've got some ideas that we need to come up with, like what these people actually do.
Right. We still don't know what the overcome is.
We don't know exactly what the overcome is that actually forces them to the point where they have to contact Helios.
Right. We have to figure out what crazy Helios is actually, what his plan for escape is, and how he interacts, how he enacts that. And then we have to come up with what their plan is to stop him from doing this. And then we have to come up with how that fails. And then we have to come up with how they finally do convince Helios to get involved in it. And then we have to find out what the ramifications for all this is. I mean, we know that the city is going to be on the ground. Like, we know this. That's where we're going. The city is, at the end of this book, the city is on the ground. Now, whether that's a featherfall descent or, more or how it happens or anything, we don't know yet. But that's what we're driving for. And these are all spoilers for you guys, but that's, I mean, you're here to learn, to watch some people plot so you can get some ideas on how to do it for yourselves. But this is exactly what we're doing. And then we're digging through this until we finally finish. So there's still some big things to answer. But again, I'm never concerned about answering these questions. So I've just been doing this long enough that it's like, I have no idea what we're doing right now, but I have no fear that we're going to get there.
So just to put a bow on this episode in terms of what I would like you, the viewer, to take away from this, or the listener to take away from this. I think the thing that really helped us in this episode was moving beyond the point of just my rough notes to an actual outline. So having the start of a cohesive story. Now, I write these outlines basically as though I was writing for a query letter for an agent. Right. So I'm writing the outline of the book. It's not the level of detail of writing the chapter breakdowns, but it is written as though it is prose. It is written in complete sentences because that helps me think, personally. So, and then I write them with like the high level plot lines as they go. And then I write up to the point where I know I'm steady. And then I'm like, okay, and what comes after this? And then I bullet point again.
And there's something I want them to take away from this too. Because I don't think a lot of people do this. Don't just write your hero stories. Every character is a hero in the story. I mean, I don't think we would have come up with half the cool stuff we came up with if we hadn't have stepped back and done, okay, now let's write Moto's hero story. Because Moto has something going on. And so by taking a look at the world through different set of eyes, your villain, like, because we will be doing this with Crazy Helios. We'll be doing this with Helios as well. We'll be doing with the priests, where we actually go, okay, what is their thing? And even like if we end up working the loan shark into it, I want to do, and I don't do it all officially like we did here. A lot of times I just do it kind of
quickly.
Well, not quickly, but subconsciously. I'm always thinking, but if you're not there yet, because I used to not do that on my plot arcs for the stuff that I wrote 10, 12, 15 years ago, I actually would plot out every single character, both primary and secondary, not my tertiaries, but my primary and secondary characters. I would write the entire story arc of that character, even though they're not in these scenes, but what their motivation is, where they're trying to get to, why they're trying to get to it. And oh my goodness, did it help me out? Because now I'm looking at this world and this event from all these different angles. I'm never going to write any of these things. Like, we're going to write a lot more of Moto's than, because he's there. He's a secondary character. But, the loan shark, we're not going to write 90% of his story, but just taking a few moments to think about, okay, well, what's driving him? What is he trying to accomplish? What does he actually care about? He may die because he's not the hero, but he's his hero. And so that's the thing that I would challenge the audience is to think about. Again, talked about this in the last podcast. One of the people that showed up in last night's group, it's an assassin killing a really evil dude in an alleyway. And the assassin had a great personality and dialogue and everything like that. And the guy she's killing is basically a cardboard cutout. He had no emotions, no feelings, no nothing. And so I challenged the writer. I said, next week I want you to show up with the same scene written, but I want you to write it from the guy that's going to get killed. The whole thing is from his perspective, all the way up to his death. Like, you're going to kill him. So obviously his story ends there. But I want you in his head. I want you to actually write it from his head. Now, this is a tertiary character. He's in one scene and that's it. But by doing these exercises, you will start to understand that your story is not about your main characters solely. The story is everybody contributing to it. And then, obviously you're telling it through the lens of your actual narrating characters. So that's the other thing that I want to throw in here, because stepping into Moda's shoes, I think, helped us a lot as well.
Yeah, I agree. No, I agree. And I do encourage people to try and think from the villain's perspective, or from what you think is the villain's perspective, especially like secondary character. Like, try and think what their goals are and work from there.
Yep.
So I think those are the two great takeaways from the session. Let's try and write a rough outline, like an actual sentence-based outline, and because it can help the thinking process, and try and think from the perspective of the secondary and tertiary characters.
Yep.
And that is a great place to leave this episode. We will see you soon for another one.
Bye.